and then just do a quick recap of kind of what they would have seen.
Okay.
Go, Carol.
Good morning. This is Carol Dixon with the Idaho Federation of Families, and I wanted to welcome everybody to our October parent webinar. We're glad to have you all join us. Sorry for being a little bit delayed. Technical things always seem to kind of pop up at the last minute, but we're glad to get started. First, we have 2 new things that we want to let you know about. When you registered, the next page you went to will have 2 items on there we want you to be aware of. One of them is a chat box. That will enable you as we go through the webinar. If there are questions that you would like to ask at the end of the webinar, go ahead, put those questions into the chat box. We'll be keeping track of those, and we will bring those to discuss with Marie at the end of the presentation. Second, there's also a link to a survey that gives us just really valuable information. It's also critical in terms of our grant and contract to be able to report back feedback from those that are watching the webinar. So we appreciate if you want to use both of those. It just kind of helps give us a richer feedback information and then answer your questions. Also want to let you know that on November's webinar, we'll be having Teresa Heald presenting, and her topic is going to be Parents' Crucial Role engaging in your child's mental health treatment. So again, that's the November webinar. Then in December, our Youth Move kids, teens, will be back. They did a webinar, I think in August, that went over extremely well. And this is their opportunity to provide information that they feel like is really crucial for parents to understand from the teen perspective different elements about mental health in terms of kind of what they feel like is important. So let me introduce you to Marie Breton. Sorry. And today she's going to talk on wiring your baby's brain for attachment. Marie is with Star Behavioral Health and also Brenton Life Counseling and Coaching. So Marie, thank you very much for being with us this morning, and we look forward to the information you're going to present.
Okay, so before we begin, I wanted to let everyone know if you want more information on this subject, this is the book that I'm getting this information from. It's called The Science of Parenting. Whoops, there it is. Okay, so we are just briefly touching the surface of this topic. I'm just talking about infancy, and this book covers a lot more than what we're talking about today. And I cannot see any of that. Yes. I can't see it.
Excuse us 1 second. We're having a technical challenge. So is it?
I can't see it. Like I literally cannot see it at all.
Okay. Okay, if we can just hold for 2 seconds, let us deal with a technical issue, and we will be right back.
She doesn't have notes?
This is terrible.
Are you? Chris, you need a different coax. Not coax people.
Carol, is it possible to, is that, can they hear me?
No, I think it's just all on this slide right now.
Okay.
So it's not. So I'm looking to see if I can pull it up on my phone.
Is it possible to not even allow them to see me, and so I can?
Pardon
Is it possible?
Put it right
Can
here.
I put that? Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. 'Cause I would prefer it if they couldn't even see me, and we could just do the slides, and then I could just talk, and they could
Right.
hear me.
Let's do that. So Mike,
Yeah.
she's got a laptop.
She has a laptop?
Yeah,
Where is it?
sitting on the table now.
Oh, we've got it, we're
Yeah.
good?
So what she would like to know is if she can just not have her see her at all, and she writes this one time.
Good. Go ahead, you're good.
Okay, so back to our slides. So it all starts with parents. Having a warm, safe view of the world depends very much on the special one-on-one quality times with your parents. Many adults are not able to manage their stress effectively, nor model this for their own children. They were not taught to self-regulate or self-soothe as children, or even effectively set up these neural pathways in their own brains. If we can establish these neural pathways where children learn from the beginning to self-soothe and think rationally, they'll be less likely to turn to fits of rage, anxiety attacks, and substance abuse. Wouldn't it be amazing to sculpt your child's brain and ability to experience life to the fullest so that they could have the opportunity to not lose that sense of wonder that they have as children and also remain rooted in reality? You can help them to do this by creating a secure sense of attachment. And the first 5 years are the optimal time to do this. I began teaching this topic to young mothers and mothers-to-be re-entering society in in Northern California. I can't really tell you too much about that, but it was about 5 years ago, 4 or 5 years ago, with this very book. And I just totally lost my train of thought. But I found that this information has been really helpful to help people understand the connection between what happens in our babies' brains and what happens later in life. So let's talk about brains. Let's talk about what happens. Brains have 3 parts. They have the rational brain, the neocortex, the frontal lobe. That's that outer part, and the frontal lobe. The neocortex consists of the frontal lobe and the other lobes, and it consists of 85% of the total brain mass. This is where emotionally responsible parenting has a dramatically positive effect, despite the frontal lobe being a center for logic. This is why we're talking about brains today. It's responsible, the neocortex is responsible for creativity, imagination, problem solving, reasoning, reflection, self-awareness, kindness, empathy, and concern. It's also responsible for things like speech and language. So if you look on this next slide, it's also responsible for, oh, I'm not moving ahead in this.
So I'm gonna let you stop for a second, because YouTube is not letting it through right now. So that was just a practice.
Oh my gosh.
Did something go funky on your side?
I just noticed I'm flipping through on this one. I can't even see it on that one, so I don't know when to,
Oh, okay, okay.
like,
Right. Okay, so that's good. So maybe what I need to do then is to be back here, and as you're flipping, to make sure that
I'm
this
so
one-
sorry.
Oh, that's okay. Well, the technical problems that they're dealing with right now have nothing to do with you. So everything's just kind of. So that part, yeah, we can definitely manage that. Okay. So good. You just had like a 5-minute practice.
Wow.
And something's happening with YouTube, and I don't know what the heck that is. So we're just gonna sit down.
I'm kind of glad.
So my guess what's gonna happen is that it's gonna, because people will kind of be like, can't get in, and they're gonna go off and do other things. So what happens is that we will do it, and actually where we get the most watching is when it gets archived. So then parents, because a lot of times in the morning it's more professionals, and what we find is that the parents who aren't necessarily available at 10 o'clock on Thursday morning, is they'll loop back around, and they pull it off of our Federation YouTube site.
Okay.
So they'll be able to see it later on, so it becomes part of our library.
Okay.
So if it takes any stress off that you will be live to a very small number at this point in time.
Unfortunately, it's other professionals.
Oh, well, they haven't seen that, but they haven't seen anything, because YouTube did not let it go on. So nothing's been seen yet.
Oh, okay. Because at some point I got a text from Jessica that said, "We can hear you." I'm like, ah. So they did hear something. I just don't know what they heard or how much.
But I would say, let's take your mic off. And just move it over. Until we get a.
think so. It works.
Okay. Do we need another sound check? Are we okay? Okay, good morning. This is Carol Dixon with Idaho Federation of Families, and we want to welcome you to our October parent webinar. We apologize for the delay. There were some technical issues that we were kind of trying to resolve, so hopefully they are all taken care of. A couple things I wanted to let everybody know about. On your, when you registered, we had a new registration site, and you will notice when you kind of went to the home page that there are two new options that we would love for you to use. One of them is the chat box. That will give you the opportunity, as Marie does her presentation, to be able to write in some questions that we will address at the end of the presentation. The second is a survey. The surveys are very helpful for us, one, just getting your feedback on additional information that you would like going forward, and also that allows us to provide information back to our grant and contract organizations. So the upcoming webinars, I want to let you know that in November we will have Teresa Heald return, and she is presenting on parents' crucial role engaging in your child's mental health treatment. And then in December, our Youth Move young adults are returning as they want to continue to share information they feel like is important for parents to understand in regards to the teens aspect on mental health and mental wellness. So for our October webinar, we want to introduce you to Marie Breton. She is going to present on wiring your baby's brain for attachment. Marie is with Star Behavioral Health and also Brenton Life Coaching and Counseling. So with that, Marie, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank
and
you.
We're looking forward to your information.
Thanks. So to begin our presentation today, I'd like to let you know that if you want more information on this subject, I'm just going to be presenting a very, very small amount of information that comes out of a book that I've taught from before. Okay, thank you. Okay, so it's a very, very small information from the beginning of this book right here. It's called The Science of Parenting by Margot Sunderland. I've taught this information before. To young women coming back into society, pregnant or very new mothers, and it's been very helpful for those mothers to understand the link between what's happening in their baby's brain and also how that is affected by the relationship between mom and baby or dad and baby. So that's why we're talking about brain science today. So what we're talking about is that it all starts with parents. We're going somewhere we're not there. Back. Backwards. Yeah. We're here. Okay, there we are. Okay, so it all starts with parents. Having a warm, safe view of the world depends very much on the special one-on-one quality times with your parents. Many adults are not able to manage the stress effectively, nor model this for their own children. They were not taught to self-regulate or self-soothe as children, or even effectively set up these pathways in their brains. If we can establish these neural pathways where children learn from the beginning to self-soothe and to think rationally, they will be less likely to turn to fits of rage, anxiety attacks, or substance abuse. Wouldn't it be so amazing to be able to sculpt your baby's brain and give them the ability to experience life to the fullest so that they could have the opportunity to not lose that sense of wonder and remain rooted in reality? You can help them with this by creating a secure sense of attachment in the first 5 years, which is the optimal time to do this. Let's talk about brains. So the rational or higher brain is the first part of the brain that we're going to talk about. It is the neocortex, and it includes the frontal cortex, but the neocortex also includes the other parts, the other lobes of the brain, like the occipital lobe and other outer lobes of the brain. The neocortex covers 85% of the total brain mass. This is where emotionally responsive parenting has a dramatically positive effect, despite the frontal lobe being a center of logic. The neocortex is responsible for creativity, imagination, problem solving, reasoning, reflection, self-awareness, kindness, empathy, and concern, but it also has an effect on speech, language, the baby's weight. It has an effect on the baby's ability to read later, vision, its perception of being hungry, the ability to write later on, its ability to maintain memory. So it's much more than just what's going on in baby right now. So then we're going to talk about the lower and midbrain. That's where the limbic system is. This activates fear, rage, separation distress. That sounds very negative, but we're also going to talk about those positive things like caring and nurturing, social bonding, playfulness, explorative urge, and also lust in adults. This part of the brain triggers strong emotions, which need to be managed by the rational part of the brain that we just talked about. It also helps control the more instinctive responses, such as those involved in the fight or flight responses. The deeper brain, that's where the spinal cord is, that's where the more instinctive parts are. It controls involuntary reactions. It's often called the reptilian brain, and it activates functions of the brain related to survival. It controls essential bodily functions required to sustain life, such as hunger, digestion and elimination, breathing, circulation, temperature, movement, posture, balance, territorial instincts, fight, flight, freeze, or submit. So in order for brains to fully develop the way that they're supposed to, fetal and infant brains need fats. So do adult brains. From conception through weaning and beyond, brains need healthy fats, not just any fat. So your baby needs healthy fats, and so do you. So whether you're pregnant or whether you're breastfeeding, you need to have things like avocados and almonds and cashews and eggs and shrimp and salmon, olives and olive oils, all those things that get you those healthy fats that have things like omega-3s in them in order to build healthy brain cells. Once your baby is weaned, then if they're drinking milk, they need full-fat milks. If your baby is drinking formula, then usually the formula covers those things. So when your baby's born, its brain is unfinished. Much of the infant brain is undeveloped at birth. So it is open to being sculpted by both positive and negative experiences, particularly in the frontal cortex. This is not fully developed until between the ages of 23 and 25 years, depending on development and gender. Although they have roughly 200 billion brain cells at birth, they have few connections in this region, giving you as a parent an incredible opportunity to help build neural pathways which are healthy and effective for your child. In decades past, parents and scientists have not been privy to information which helps build secure attachment from the beginning. Although we've had people like Bowlby that have studied and given us good information about attachment, we've also got some very bad information that was given to parents. We've been taught things which are very counterproductive and have ended up with generations of adults who are unable to cope, attached to others in healthy ways, and have multiple failed relationships and sometimes worse. Sometimes adults are emotionally stuck in toddler emotional development stages due to neglect, whether intentional or just bad parenting advice. Many of us have people in our lives that, though they love us, they've given us advice that was thought to be the best idea at the time that they were raising their children, but really just is not the best advice that could be given. And we're going to talk about some of that in just a minute. Thankfully, we have better information today. 90% of growth occurs in the first 5 years. First connections are formed, unformed, and reformed during this time, and around age 7, it slows down due to more cells being myelinated. For those of you who don't know what myelination is, what that is get a little tongue-tied here. Okay, so what myelination is when pathways are being formed, the brain cells are like this, and they don't actually touch. There's a little space in between, and in order for that to become a pathway that's solidified, there is a sheath that goes over it, and it's called myelin. And myelin is it's the consistency of like a sticky egg white. It's not quite like a cooked egg white. It's like kind of half cooked, and it's if you know anything about fish, if you think about when fish get that gross stuff called ick, it's like can't really explain it, but it would stretch between your fingers. And what it does is it protects the neural pathways that are forming. Brain sculpting and setting up higher functioning. So we're going to talk about synaptic pruning. So we just talked about that there are 200 billion cells at birth, but by age 1, we've lost 80 billion of them already. And we've gained some connections by that time. By age 2, synaptic pruning has begun. Synaptic pruning, what that means is some of those synapses that we just talked about, that those connections are being made, some of those are pruning off. We don't keep what we don't use. So some of us, maybe we learned a second language at some point, and if we use those words that we've learned, those synapses are kept because we continually use them. But if we don't use them, those synapses are pruned off. We don't keep them. The same is true for other things that we learn. Things that we learn as a baby that we don't need later on in life are pruned off. So, by age 2, synaptic pruning has begun due to a more complex wiring system in place by this time. Parts of the frontal lobes that may flourish with emotionally responsive parenting are orbital frontal region. This plays a role in effective management of strong feelings and the inhibiting of primitive type impulses. It helps a child respond sensitively to others and read emotional and social cues. There are a lot of kids out there who maybe they might read body language, but maybe they don't read the social cues of another person's face. Or maybe they might read another person's face, but if you're sitting there like this, they don't really understand what that body language means. So we want to help children to understand what those things mean. So we want to have emotionally responsive parenting so that we're the example. Dorsolateral prefrontal region is involved in the ability to think, plan, reason, reflect, and make good choices. We want our kids to make choices. We want them to plan ahead. We want them to follow through with the choices that they make. Ventromedial region, this is involved in the ability to think about emotional experiences and calm down and calm the midbrain area when panic strikes. So basically, let's say that this is your amygdala, and this is the panic button in your brain, right in here, okay? And this is your frontal cortex. And this is where your reason and your logic is. So your panic button strikes and your prefrontal cortex kind of goes offline. Have you ever been on a computer and you've pushed the button where accidentally and didn't realize you did it, and all of a sudden you're not online anymore? And you're like, oh my gosh, I broke my computer. I don't know what to do. Well, you didn't break your computer. You need to find where that button is and turn your internet back on. The same is true for your brain. You didn't break your brain. You've pushed your panic button, and you need to find what needs to happen to turn your frontal cortex back on. It's not really turned off, but it's not functioning at optimal rate right now because your panic button is pushed. So you need to find what you need to do to self-soothe, to calm down, to get your frontal cortex back online and get it functioning the way it is supposed to. We can teach our children how to do that at a very young age, right from infancy. Yeah, they're going to have times when they're going to panic, but they're going to panic a lot less often if we teach them with emotional and responsive parenting. Anterior cingulate region. This is involved in focus and attention and self-awareness. Oftentimes children are diagnosed with ADHD and actually have attachment problems. Brain sculpting and setting up higher functioning. So the parent-child relationship is very, very important. Every interaction that you have with your child is building connections in his brain for future reference. The brain is designed to help the child learn to adapt to future situations. This can be very positive or negative. So this can be kind of scary because as new parents, we can be a little bit panicked by that. Maybe not all of us, most of us worry, am I going to be a good parent? Your child is probably going to be fine. However, there are things that we can do that are going to be very damaging. There are things we can do that can make our child have a much, much healthier childhood. It can swing either way. And if we can do things on purpose to make it a much healthier childhood, then I think we need to take those steps. So, obviously in cases of abuse where disorganized attachment can occur, as well as other lifelong challenges, this is very negative. Other negatives can be avoidant or insecure attachment when the child learns that you will not or may not always care for his needs. So just a little caveat here. Oftentimes I use his. I have 4 sons and I have a grandson. I just default to his. So that's just why that is. So nothing against curls, I just don't have any. A child with a bullying parent may, due to brain structure and chemical changes, experience hypervigilance, heightened aggression or fear responses, heightened attack or defensive impulses. The way you treat him when he is not following the rules is of real significance. Do you want him to manage his anger or stress well, be kind and compassionate of others, follow his dreams to fruition? Think before you speak. We don't want to tell our kids they're bad. What they're doing might be bad. What they're doing might be a bad idea. But we don't want to tell them they're bad. We want to tell them, what do you think you could have done differently? That's for older kids. But even from a very, very young age, we want to think about, what are we saying to our kids? What are we saying in front of our kids? So that was all really negative. There's also so much positive here. When you feel that emotional connection between your brain and your child's, it's incomparable. And it can happen with other caregivers. If you think this only happens with biological parents, that is not so. This is so true with adoptive parents, aunts, uncles, anyone who loves a child. It starts with parents, but a child needs someone who loves and believes in him. He is not a lost cause if he does not have parents. The way you listen, pay attention, look at him when he speaks or coos, play with him, comfort him, cuddle and correct him today. That will make all the difference now and later in his life. It'll allow him to love deeply and freely later with his love and with his child. Have you ever had your toddler squeeze your cheeks, look into your eyes and say, "I you," or "I love you, Mommy"? Yeah, me too. Now think about being a child. Remember someone or some people who made you feel your worth? Was it your parent? I hope so. But if not, I bet there was someone. Mirror neurons. Now this is what we were just talking about. They're involved in attraction. When you meet someone on the street and you just meet eye to eye, and those neurotransmitters, they just flush your brain and you're like, oh my gosh, that person was so attractive. That's just a wash of neurotransmitters. And it all happens in the frontal lobes of your brain. It also happens in empathy, when you're talking to someone and you have such an emotional connection, such an energy between the two of you, that you can almost literally feel what they're feeling. That's all happening in the front part of your brain. It's an emotional, physical connection. It's also when you watch two lovers stare at each other and you can just see how in love they are and see their emotional connection. You can see that in the connection between a new parent and their child, how in love that parent is with that baby. That all happens right there in the frontal cortex, and it has a direct impact on the emotional systems in that child's brain and also in the parents. It also has an impact on the key arousal systems in the child's body. You're setting that child up for the self-soothing ability. Language. When does my child start communicating? Most babies communicate the minute they're out of the womb. Now, it's been a while since I've heard about doctors swatting babies on the butt, But they do maybe tickle the baby's foot and the baby doesn't like it, so the baby cries. Or the baby just doesn't like the fact that they're out of the mother's womb, and so they cry because they've entered the world. So they cry almost immediately, most of the time. How does my baby communicate? From the first cry, they're communicating. These cries tell us that they're hungry, they're soiled, they're afraid, or they just need affection. And you'll begin to notice the difference in the cries for each need eventually. You may not know the first day, the first week, maybe not even the first month, but eventually you're going to know the difference. And at some point, you're going to have a serious lack of sleep.
Silence! Your voice is grating on my ear knobs.
And like every parent, you're going to want them to be quiet. And at some point, you're going to have a very, very serious lack of sleep. And you're going to say, what the flagnard, like Galaxar just did. And that's okay. And what you need is a break. Because what happens is, when you've had too much frustration and you've had too much crying and you've had not enough sleep and your cortisol levels are at their peak, your baby can feel that. Your baby can feel that negative energy. And so what you need is you need to take a break, and it's okay. How can I build a relationship from the beginning? Respond to your baby's needs. When your infant begins to coo and make sounds, do it back. Many of us say, I'm not going to baby talk to my baby. Yeah, you will. Most of you will. I know I did. And you know what? It's good. It's good for your baby to make the same sounds that your baby is making, because it teaches him that you are interested in what sounds he is making. It teaches him that you are interested in what he's doing. It teaches him to repeat what you're doing. It teaches him language. Look into his eyes and smile a lot. Talk, read, and sing to him. Even a newborn knows when you're frustrated, so take a break. Yep, I said it again, and I'll keep saying it. All about newbies. Relevant reflexes. The step reflex. If you stand a newborn up and hold on to him, and you put his feet on your lap or on the ground, it looks like he can walk. It's kind of cute. No, they can't really walk, but it's kind of fun to watch. And it makes you smile, and eventually he'll want to smile back. Rooting. If you touch your baby's face and you stroke his cheek, he'll turn towards that, because his natural response is to turn toward anything that's possible food. The moro, or the startle reflex, is the fight or flight response to the feeling of being dropped or loud noises. The palmar reflex. Yep, when you put your finger in your baby's palm, he's going to grab your finger. And you may think, oh, he's so strong, he's so smart. Yeah, he is. But that's a reflex. And he's going to grab your finger. Positioning for maximum bonding opportunities. Now, normally when I talk about this, I have a newborn in my hand, borrow somebody's. I don't have that right now, but we'll talk about that anyway. So when you cradle your newborn, you want him to be in your arms, kind of facing towards your body, not just facing up, but facing towards your body. And you want his head to be within a forearm or the top of your arm's distance from your face, so that he is within the right amount of distance from your face to be able to actually see you. he doesn't have a lot of sight distance. So you want him to be able to look into your eyes while you're looking into him. Sometimes people ask me, well, why does that baby look into your eyes? He doesn't look at me. Well, I've held a lot of babies. And I know, because I've read this book, and because I've had some training, and because I've held a lot of babies, that I know how far away they can see me. And I know that they need to be kind of held toward me. The other thing is, dads like to football hold. That's kind of where you hold the baby's head in your hand and their body is more toward your elbow. That's okay, because dads tend to hold the baby up this way with their head this way. So there's still that minimal distance towards the face. So dads can do what they like and still get that eye-to-eye contact. Another good way is for skin-to-skin contact. It doesn't have to be eye-to-eye. Eye-to-eye is good because you want those mirror neurons, but also skin-to-skin contact. Babies need lots and lots of touch. Baby massage. A lot of people like to put their baby on their chest. Having that baby able to hear your heartbeat is pretty special. Also, just having that baby, if they're colicky, sometimes you can put that baby with their belly against your belly. Learned that a long time ago from a doctor, because I had a really colicky baby, and that seemed to help him a lot. Help baby fall asleep quickly. So, my favorite thing to say is Dr. Spock was wrong. So this is what I was talking about earlier about some bad advice. Dr. Spock was a huge, huge thing back in the 60s and 70s, and he used to tell mothers to let them cry it out. Let your babies cry it out. After 20 minutes, they'll just fall asleep. Well, yeah, your baby will fall asleep. Your baby will give up. And that's not a good thing. After 20 minutes alone, what your baby will actually learn is a lack of trust in you, a lack of trust in his needs being met, and a lack of trust in the world. He'll learn that the world is an unsafe place. So what should you do instead? Have a bedtime routine. It could be 5 minutes, but about 15 to 30 minutes is good too. Read and or sing to him, going every 5-ish minutes to soothe or pat his back. Stroke his head or face, check for a soiled diaper, speak softly. Hold your baby if you want to. Co-sleeping is okay if that's what you want. Baby needs your touch, your voice. He needs routine. He needs attention and affection. Spoiling an infant is an age-old wives' tale, and its time has come to an end. I cannot tell enough parents, you cannot spoil an infant. Comfort him to sleep. You don't have to do all of these things. These are suggestions. Do what you like. And you don't have to bug your baby. If your baby's sleeping or going to sleep well, let him be. But if your baby's crying, comfort your baby. So here's a link to a video. I'm going to give you a minute to hopefully copy and paste that. I was hoping that it was going to be able to just go right into it, but that didn't happen. Okay, so for those of you who were unable to get to that YouTube video, the video is watching a woman who had a baby sitting on her lap that was laughing, playing, whatever she was doing, and the baby was awake. And all this woman did was to stroke the baby's head, stroke the baby's face. There was some talking, maybe some singing in the background, and she just kept stroking the baby's face, stroking the baby's head, just kind of round and round in circles, just kind of moving around like this. And the next thing you know, the baby was leaning on her, and her eyes started to droop, and she started to drift off. And the next thing you know, I think the video was maybe 1 minute and 6 seconds. The next thing you know, that baby was asleep. It really is not that hard to put a baby to sleep. Babies just need to know that their world is okay, that they're okay, and that there is safety and comfort. And I just thought that was the most special video about putting babies to sleep. So, this is polyvagal theory. It is a theory by Stephen Porges, and he is a person who talks about the polyvagal nerve, and that is a nerve that is involved in arousal. So what this shows is when there is safety, a baby is able to rest and digest, have optimal arousal level, the parasympathetic nervous system is going well, and when they're awake, they can have eye contact and facial expressions and proper vocalization. Things are going well. If you're putting baby down to sleep and things are good, they can go to sleep. When you put that baby down to sleep, and let's say they're soiled, then they're distressed. Now, the polyvagal theory isn't just about, I'm using it for this purpose. It's not just about babies or sleep or any of that. It's about safety, danger, and life-threatening responses. I'm talking about it in this context, but I just want to be very clear that it's not only about this context. So you put this baby down to sleep, and its diaper is dirty, and nobody comes to fix that. And it decides that it's hungry because it just eliminated all the things in its stomach, and it's hungry, and it's not going to sleep. It's not tired now, it's hungry. And nobody comes to help. And it's lying there, and it's crying, and it's crying, and it's crying, and it's crying. And nobody comes to help because this parent was told, let the baby cry it out. It'll be okay. Let the baby cry it out. Don't go in there. You'll spoil that baby. Let him cry. He'll be fine. What that baby is experiencing from the time that he starts crying is, oh no, something is wrong. Something is wrong. But he doesn't really have fight or flight because, he's feeling it, but he can't fight because he can't get up and fight. He can't run because he can't do that. So what he's experiencing is panic. That's all he can do. He can panic. After 20 minutes, what he gets is the freeze and or submit. He just gives up and he goes to sleep. That's what happens. And it's sad. And after a period of time where that happens over and over and over and over, because this is what this parent was taught, so this is now what this child is taught, that after 20 minutes of me crying, I might as well give up because nobody's going to come and help me. This is now the norm. And so now this child has a problem that's going to follow throughout life, because now He has an attachment problem. So last important thoughts. Whether you choose to breastfeed or bottle feed, do what's best for you as parents and for your baby. People are going to give you a lot of advice as new parents. You got to do what's best for you. And again, the better his language is going to be. Propping bottles is not recommended for many reasons. It's a choking hazard. Doctors don't recommend it. Therapists don't recommend it. It's a lost bonding opportunity. I did it. I get it. Be better. Babies need dad to care for him too. Dad needs time to bond with baby. Find a way. If you and your baby's other parent are not together, find a way to co-parent. Many parents get wrapped up in their own stuff. If both parents are loving towards baby, keep your problems between the two of you. Your child does not need to know what you think of that other parent. It will only hurt you, the naysayer, and your child in the future. What children learn, even little children, when there's animosity between the parents that's shown and or said in front of the parent, what the child learns is that if the other child is bad and I'm part of that other parent, or that other parent is part of me, then part of me is bad, even before they can speak it, even before they can understand it. They know. And so they internalize it. Don't do that to your kids. Keep it to yourself. Love your kids. I know you do. So, if you want more, Margot Sunderland, she's the author of this book. Polyvagal Theory is Stephen Porges. And you can talk to me about parenting anytime. 600-5291. Thanks.
Take some questions.
Yeah.
Did I just explain this what we're doing? Okay, I am back because we have had a couple questions that have come across through the presentation that we just wanted to address for a quick minute. And actually a couple questions, Marie, were actually about what to do when there has been attachment, if a family has adopted and they know that in early, those critical early months that the attachment bonding was not there. Are there ways to overcome that, and things that a parent should pay particular attention to if they knew that the first couple months some things were lacking?
Absolutely. The first thing you can do is do everything you can to bond with that child, to make that child feel worthy, to feel like they are, if you have other children, to make that child feel like they are part of the family, that they are just like the other children. Not that they are special, but they are part of the family, that they are just one of many. That they are, and if they are an only child, that they are your child. You know, that they are, all children should be special, right? If that child is an older child and has problems, definitely get some therapy for you, get some therapy for your child. Do some research, do some reading. There are some wonderful videos out there and books out there. Nancy Thomas is a wonderful resource. You can look her up on YouTube. You can look her up, just Google her. Nancy Thomas, Love is Not Enough. She is the guru for attachment these days. She's amazing.
Okay, great resources. Another question was about, are there certain signs and symptoms that someone should look for to indicate that there is a problem that's attachment based? So are there particular things that a child might be doing that a parent would go, aha, that's a concern?
Oh, that's such a loaded question. There are so many different signs that you can look for. Rage issues are
Okay.
one. Yeah, I mean, if you're talking about reactive attachment disorder, that's a huge issue,
Right.
right? But there are smaller issues too. There are things like avoidant attachment and insecure attachment. I mean, if your child doesn't really care whether you walk into a room or doesn't,
Doesn't notice you, like the eyes don't light up and their little feet don't start kicking and things
Yeah,
like that at a young age. Okay.
I would say if they have ADHD symptoms, double check. Double check that it's not an attachment issue, or that maybe there's not also an attachment issue.
Right.
Definitely, if there are rage issues, if there's hypervigilance, if there's anxiety issues, definitely look for those things.
Okay. And what age might a parent start seeing that? I would think that a toddler can easily show rage issues. So
Absolutely.
Okay, so it can come at a very early age.
Yeah, very early age.
And particularly if they don't know what some of their early history may have been. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And are there like classes for parents that are interested? Do you know of local resources where there might be like seminars or workshops or classes that are specific to those early bonding and...
There are some great resources in the area. There is a place called Monarch that has PCIT, which is Parent-Child Interaction Therapy. There are places in the area that do parenting with love and logic. That's a fantastic program. I also do some parenting classes through Star Family Behavioral Health and also through Breton Life Coaching and Counseling. You can do individual counseling just for parenting. You can look for parenting groups in the area. And I would say contact an agency or just do a general Google search for parenting information, parenting classes, parenting support groups, and those types of
There's
things
quite a
in
bit
the
out there,
area.
it sounds like.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. It's a fascinating topic because I think that as we do more brain research, we are getting a better understanding of the early issues, and just like you talked about the wiring and how important that is. But it seems to be a new evolving field of study. So I think this is information that for many might be new, and particularly if they are young parents, it's really valuable information. So we certainly appreciate your bringing it to us this morning. Thank you for sharing your area of expertise. And again, thank you for all that have joined us. We apologize for our technical difficulties we had early, but glad that you are still with us. And we look forward to seeing you in November for our next parent webinar that Teresa Heald is going to be presenting. Thank you much.
Thank you.